Abolition. Today.
So specifically, just to the comments that you made, and then the response that you made on the question of slavery and whether or not it has actually been abolished in this country. What is your specific position on that?
That's a great question, sir, and I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the back information that you gave in regards to that. Anytime that you would hear me, if I was standing in front of my classroom and I would say, "Hey, today we're going to go over the 27 amendments," and then we got to the 13th Amendment, I said, and I started to speak about this would abolish slavery, or I talked about a specific constitution in the state of Texas that abolished slavery, and of course the language clearly states except in terms of penalty for a crime or punishment for a crime. There would be many ways that I would encourage my colleagues and my students to challenge that in terms of whether or not slavery has ever really been abolished in this country. But I would think that just from an academic point of view, it is just stating that particular fact is something that I don't shy away from. I'll still say with the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment. Anytime you're thinking about what many people call the Civil Rights Amendments, what many people call the African American amendments, did one of these amendments actually give African Americans true due process? Did it actually make us citizens? I think all of those things, when you think about our Constitution, when you look at it from a state by state level, each one of them, it is very cognizant of you to challenge that. So I appreciate you challenging that. So I don't want you to think that when I say it just so factually, like at that particular moment slavery had been abolished. Of course, we know about Juneteenth in the state of Texas and so on and so forth. So I appreciate that challenge to that. But please know that when I say it, I'm just saying it from a totally academic standpoint in terms of just reciting what the 13th Amendment states.
Okay, well, I would just add then that it doesn't actually say that. That's the point that I'm making. It doesn't say that. But I get what you're saying from an academic standpoint. But I think that has also been a problem with understanding it and interpreting it and understanding where we are as a country and the issues that we see with mass incarceration, how it affects Black people, even rounding back to the young and the politic, their purpose and going out getting votes, how people are permanently disenfranchised, how we're permanent in second-class citizenship. I mean, there are just so many parallels to the institution and to the actual language that I think that the academic area is where a lot of the skewed perspective is coming from. It's a lot of the misquoting, the misstatements, and people are coming out regurgitating that and repeating that. And over time, it has become a mindset. It has become a cultural statement. It has come accepted. And so people, I did many interviews about this, had conversations about it, and I've talked to journalists from some of the largest, networks in the country, and they would be talking about that issue. And I would ask them, have you ever actually read the 13th Amendment? And most people have never even actually read it or studied it or studied the history of it. And so I think that is potentially harmful for people to be misinformed. But I do understand what you're saying. So I'm not trying to challenge you or nothing that you're saying. I understand the issue, but I understand that the advocacy on my side and people who are doing what I'm doing, that we have to be in these spaces and have these conversations and ask these questions just for clarity's sake, and to make sure that the people who are listening are aware of the full spectrum of the conversation. So that's what I'm just doing. And so I appreciate your comments and whatnot. And thank you.
Would I be able to just refer you back or refer back to you just one question? Would you feel more comfortable if you heard someone with your level of knowledge, if you heard a professor, you heard a journalist, as you just spoke about, that would refer to the 13th Amendment in terms of just chattel slavery? Would that make you feel more comfortable, or would you still challenge it in terms of that the amendment doesn't really abolish slavery for African Americans in this country?
Well, I think that we would have to go beyond the language and look to the actual practice. In 1865, when the 13th Amendment was ratified on December 6th, they came with the Black Codes and the vagrancy laws. And when they started re-enslaving or re-incarcerating our people, they leased them right back out to the slave plantations that we came off of. The prison systems in Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi were built on actual old slave plantations. Former slave plantation owners and masters became wardens of these plantations. We were leased out to the railroad companies. We were required to work for free, unending. There's no way we could pay off our debts. Just everything. We got out. We didn't own anything. We didn't have property. So it just goes beyond the language to the actual practice. And from the practice standpoint, and the names changed, we became part of the convict leasing system. So the chattel slavery aspect of it never disappeared. Even to this day, in prisons today, people in prison are made to work for free. We see these all type of products are being made all around the world. Like there was a video that just came out that showed that the actual Capitol that was just destroyed, that furniture will be replaced by prison slave labor. So it's not an issue of just that particular adjective, if you would. It's simply that the practice that came about because of that amendment. Because remember, before the 13th Amendment, slaves were on private citizens' land. After the 13th Amendment, we went to government property and government land, but the practice of what was going on and taking place never changed. We went from Mr. Jim's property to state property, and everything else remained the same, whether it was food, whether it was healthcare, whether it was brutality, whether it was treatment, whether it was lack of pay, separation from families, controlling our birth, controlling our marriage, controlling every institution of our life. So that would be my response to that.
Abolition, after day, after day, after day.